TheMeatly has released the Bendy Chapter 5 production trailer, and he has included some juicy clues about the final chapter. Watch on to find out why. The trailer starts off fairly plainly with sound playing over a black screen. There is creepy, surreal music suggesting that we may get a more odd than usual stage in the next chapter. It is calm, but also feels like it's going to lead to a massive build-up. And being the last chapter in the game, this shouldn't be a surprise, but it lends further to the dialogue we hear to accompany it. We also hear what sounds like a foghorn playing in the background. It could be the sound of a boss creature, but I think it sounds a lot like Ink Bendy groaning, just louder. Then we hear a female voice that asks,
"Henry, why are you here?"
"Henry, why are you here?" The voice is calm and sounds a lot like Lauren Singer, voice of Alice Angel, so this may just be the voice of Perfect Alice, commonly referred to as Allison Angel. If this is the case, it would be some pretty exciting evidence to confirm that Alice and Pendle may have become Perfect Alice, who is the same character we saw take down Imperfect Alice at the end of Chapter 4. As this voice is speaking to Henry, it is sensible to say that the one that replies is actually Henry. I mainly point this out because there were some concerns that the voice sounded slightly higher pitched than usual, but I really do think it resembles the same voice we've been hearing throughout the series to date. His reply is,
"The Ink Demon has something that we need. I'm going after him."
"The Ink Demon has something that we need. I'm going after him." Okay, Henry, you never talked to anyone except Boris, and to hear you speaking about the Ink Demon for the first time is pretty darn cool, but where did that come from? Anyway, what exactly does the Ink Demon have? Going back to Chapter 1, each of the employees had to give up an offering from their desks to help Joey appease the gods. Perhaps our mission is to take back the original offerings from him so he is no longer appeased, resulting in a boss fight or his ultimate demise. Again, what's shocking about this dialogue to me is Henry's sudden desire to share his purpose for being at the studio. From the very start of the game, we were led to believe that Joey invited Henry to the studio so that he could show him something, and from the events of Chapter 1, that something seemed to be the ink machine. Everything until this point has been a roller coaster ride that we felt we were dragged into, rather than experiencing it by our own free will. However, this part of the production trailer would explain why Henry was so calm when coming into contact with the likes of the Ink Workers, the 3D Toons, and the Lost Ones. He was simply used to the idea and had a reason to come back to the studio after 30 years, and that is what we will learn about in the final chapter. In fact, he might have come back to the studio to destroy the ink machine altogether. Much like he came to the studio and activated the ink machine, it would be his goals to travel through the studio and put it out of commission for good. After all, we only heard Ink Bendy become active after we started the ink machine in Chapter 1, so it makes sense that the opposite would happen if we take out the ink machine in the final chapter. After this dialogue, the trailer reveals an area in front of the opening of a sewer pipe. The area is flooded with ink. To the bottom right, we can see a Bendy cutout, and on the left we can see a box, and to the right, closer to the sewer pipe, we can see an axe stuck in a post. While the Bendy cutout and the box might have just been washed down from the upper stories of the now gigantic studio, the axe in the post is probably the most interesting part here. This looks really similar to the axe that we see in Alice Angel's Chapter 3 end screen, but I do not think this signals her return. However, I do think that it might indicate that we have a boss fight ahead of us, and given Henry's dialogue, this sewer pipe may just be the final stretch before we encounter Ink Bendy and silence him for good. I can totally see Henry reaching this area to pick up that axe in preparation for a final battle. Why is Henry going in alone though? Does something happen to the Alice Angel and the Boris that we met at the end of Chapter 4? Perhaps they aren't able to make contact with the ink in this area, much like Imperfect Alice couldn't, to avoid being returned to the inky well of voices. This would crush theories based around Henry becoming an ink being or a cartoon, but it would make a lot of sense of the message that we've all grown familiar with up until this point. He will set us free. Some might suggest that a Perfect Bendy may make an appearance in the next chapter, but that would just mean that he too cannot make contact with the tainted ink. If Henry doesn't transform into a cartoon, then the only thing left that makes sense is him being a savior in a human form, and it could be one of the reasons why the broken lost ones are not hostile towards him. The area that we see here is cavernous, and the pipeline seems to be a suitable route to make our way to the ink machine that we've been chasing throughout the entire game. While I do not think it is Bendy's lair, we've already come across that during the haunted house ride, I do think it hints towards us making our way to Ink Bendy and the ink machine, much probably like the title of the game had intended. But we don't have to hold our breaths completely because Chapter 4 already gave us some hints towards what might go on in Chapter 5. Tap this video to find out more about that, or check out these videos which were picked just for you. If you're new, remember to subscribe and tap that bell for more bendy and horror game theories that actually make sense. And prodigies, I hope these videos help to expand on how you think. See ya!